Does your team suck? And are they already planning for their offseason? Well, if you're like me and 30 other of the teams that aren't playing in the Super Bowl in 2 weeks, you are already planning for the offseason. You're ready for the draft. You're ready for free agency. And that's what we're going to be doing here for pretty much the whole offseason. We're going to be doing it pre-draft, trying to get through all 32 teams. And today we're starting with the Cleveland Browns. It's going to be based on 5 criteria, and we're going to get a score based on these 5 criteria, which are staff, team evaluation, draft capital, salary cap, and what free agents they're losing or potentially can gain. And this is kind of just an overall team evaluation, kind of going into next season, and it'll all accumulate in a score out of 5, and they'll rank on some big board eventually. And like I said, this episode is the Cleveland Browns. And first, let's go ahead and get into the staff. So right now, they don't have a head coach. Editor Julian here. While I was editing, the Browns decided to hire Todd Monken as their head coach, and that causes a lot of fallout for this reason. So the Browns DC, Jim Schwartz, my pick for head coach, and I'm going to leave all this information in the video about Jim Schwartz because I kind of went off the fact that they would hire him because he has a lot of experience at being a head coach, being an assistant, and running a really great defense. But he informed the team that since he's not the head coach, he doesn't want to be there anymore. He does not want to coach at all. And he told people close to him that if he was not hired as the head coach, he was going to leave. And it only gets worse with Jim Schwartz wanting out. And then Bubba Ventrone also is not really expected to return. And one of their head coach or offensive coordinator candidates, Nate Schliehouse, is likely to stay with LA. So I don't really know what they're going to do here. So Cleveland gets a head coach, but now has to replace offensive and defense and special teams coordinator. It's going to be tough for Cleveland. And I'm going to go ahead and give them the same rating that I'm going to later in the video because that was based on them not having a head coach, offense coordinator, or really a special teams coach unless Bubba Ventrone returned. But, now with this, they have a head coach and not the other two. So, it'll be what it is. They've interviewed a lot of guys, which mostly have either been hired or withdrawn. I think the only guys they have left are Arden Durd, Dan Pitcher, Nation Schliehouse, and Jim Schwartz. I think those are the only guys left that they've interviewed. And my pick out of those guys would be Jim Schwartz. They're out an offensive coordinator. Tommy Rees left with head coach Kevin Stefanski to the Falcons. And so I think that it's kind of up in the air on who's going to lead this offense going into the season. But I think that Jim Schwartz has already been there. And I think he's an established leader. And he will probably do a pretty good job with his defense as he has done with the Browns and Eagles. Okay, and their current GM, Andrew Berry, he did a great draft last year with those guys. I think that besides the Deshaun Watson deal, he's been able to do some pretty good things. So I don't hate it. I think that they have a pretty good shot at making this draft hit. So I don't necessarily hate that. The special teams coordinator, Bubba Ventrone, he's pretty solid. But with that offensive coordinator and head coach vacancy, that's going to be pretty tough to fill, especially because they have not fulfilled the Rooney Rule. So they actually can't even hire a head coach yet. So they're already behind. They were one of the first teams that fired their head coach, and now they are one of the last teams to hire one. And overall for the staff, I'm going to have to give it a 0.2. It's really not good to have no head coach and offensive coordinator. Obviously, I think Andrew Berry and Jim Schwartz are those 2 saving factors. But without those other 2 guys in the room already, I think it's going to be pretty tough to come back and actually have some success. All right, moving into team evaluation. We're going to go ahead and talk about the defense and the offense and kind of what they were good at, what they were bad at, and the team needs heading into the draft and free agency. The defense obviously was fantastic for the Cleveland Browns. They ranked top in a lot of the categories, 4th in opposing yards per game, 3rd in opposing passing yards per game, 3rd in sacks per game. But overall, they did have some weak points. They were 13th in opposing points per game, 14th in offensive red zone scores per game, 22nd in takeaways per game. So they really don't have anybody that's going to go take that ball away and give that offense some extra possessions. But they do have a pretty good defense all around. I think that with Jim Schwartz being elevated in this scenario, I think that they will continue to be pretty good. And I think that later in the draft, they'll be able to hit on some guys. Then offensive ranks, They ranked pretty much last in every category that matters. 30th in yards per game, 21st in time of possession, 25th in sack percentage, 31st in passing yards per game, 31st in points per game. Like, it's just not, there was no real explosiveness, no consistency, no nothing with this Cleveland attack. And that makes sense. They didn't have any guys reach 1,000 yards at rushing or receiving. Judkins led the team in rushing, and Fannin led the team in receiving yards. And then their offensive line was ranked the second to last by PFF, and 4 out of their 5 starters are leaving. And with all of that mess, they don't have a quarterback really. Dylan Gabriel started the first half of the season, then Shadur took over. And none that really stuck out. I think that I would go with Shadur starting into next season. I think that there was a little more success there, and I don't know. I think he has a little bit better arm talent, but really no set quarterback, no real way to go, and that's not something that this draft class really has, and they're not in a spot to capitalize it in this draft. Overall, for team evaluation, I'm going to give it probably a half point because of how good the defense is, but the offense is so atrocious that I can't get any more than a half a point. But first, before we get into that, I got to give a shout out to today's sponsor, Morton Design Collective. If you want high quality designs and logos for your business or just for fun, go check out Morton Design Collective. They do great work over there, including my new logos. I personally got a whole brand sweep with alternate logos and everything. Look, it's just a whole package. It's going to be great for your business. Go check it out and get yours today. All right, draft capital. This is actually a bright spot for the Cleveland Browns. They have 10 picks in 2026, 4 in the top 100, and 6 in the latter half. And I think that they'll be able to move around, maybe move down, move up. I think they have a lot of liquidity in this draft that they could, especially top 5. Now, I don't think anybody's going to want to trade it for a quarterback. But so the real sweepstakes is the Ruben Bain sweepstakes. I don't know where he goes. I could see him falling out of the top 5, potentially. And maybe if he's at 6, the Browns could say, all right, let's take him and, pair him with Myles Garrett, which would be nasty, or trade down and get a lot of capital because that's huge for a team to get Ruben Bain. And that's going to be the sweepstakes. Normally, it's a quarterback sweepstakes, and I think it's going to be the Ruben Bain sweepstakes this year. But like I said, 10 picks. I think this is great. They did a great job last year with Carson Schwessinger, Mason Graham, Judkins, Harold Fannin, Dylan Sampson, and then got 2 QBs that fell. One fell a lot more, and they were actually able to get some good value out of it. And so I think they have a good plan. I think that they will do a good job in the draft. And I'll actually give them a full point for the draft capital. But let's move into the salary cap because there's a lot of issues there. Going to the salary cap, I can tell you off rip, this is going to be a 0. They are negative $24 million in cap space. They rank 28th in the league in cap space. And then Watson's still guaranteed $46 million next year. They're really going to have to restructure his contract again. And that's a maybe. They can't cut him. They can't trade him. Either way, pre or post June 1st, it's going to be a lot of dead money on their hands. And I don't know who would trade with him. I think that's the better option out of the two, money-wise. But I don't know who's going to trade for Deshaun Watson at this point. And it's going to be really hard with this amount of cap space to actually capitalize on the free agents that they're losing. And it's a lot. So let's go ahead and talk about that. They're losing a lot of free agents, and it's not just random guys. It's 4 out of 5 starters on the line and another few. So they're losing Joel Bitonio, Wyatt Teller, Cam Robinson, and Ethan Posick, 4 of their starters. And they're also losing a few more guys on their team as well. They're also losing Devin Bush, who leads the team in interceptions, who actually was playing pretty decent. They're losing Shelby Harris, David Njoku, and Rodney Hickman, their starting free safety. Really am surprised by how much they're losing. And with how much they are losing, they're really going to have to replenish this O-line in the draft. And that's kind of the thing they're going to have to hammer. So on a grade for free agents, I'm going to give them probably, a 0.2. It's going to be really hard to re-sign these guys with the cap space, and a lot of it is just going to be guys that are going to go somewhere else and play. But now, before we reveal the final ranking, we're going to go ahead and do our 3-round mock draft. We're going to be doing this for each team that we evaluate, and it's going to fluctuate a lot. The draft always does, but based on projections right now, this is what we're going with, okay? At pick 6, we're taking Caleb Lomo, offensive tackle out of Utah. I think his counterpart is probably the better run blocker, but I want the more versatile guys for Cleveland at this point. He's an immediate starter, and I think he's a little bit better in the pass game than anybody at this point. At number 2, we're going to go ahead and take Denzel Boston, wide receiver out of Washington. I think they desperately need a weapon. He's big, he's got strong hands, and he's going to be able to make a lot of contested catches, which I think there will be a lot of with some poor QB play. I do think that either Gabriel or Shedeur will be better, but I think you might as well just play the sweepstakes next year for the quarterback instead of taking a quarterback this time. Let's get him a receiver that we can establish and make it a better environment for whoever is going to be your quarterback for the long term that you're going to find probably next year. And then round 3, pick 70, we're going to take Emmanuel Pregon, the offensive guard out of Oregon. Look, he's another immediate starter. He's big, and I think that he's going to be able to ignite that run game and help, build some of that time and possession football I was talking about earlier. And then round 3 with the pick 107, we're going to take Jennings Dunker, the offensive tackle out of Iowa. He's very balanced. I know there's a lot to work on, but I think that he'll probably kick inside, and that way they've drafted their left tackle. They already have the right tackle. And then they've got 2 guards. They just got to find a center somehow later in the draft. And they're just going to be starting a really young team. It's going to be a lot of rookies and second years going out there, and it'll be interesting. It'll be probably a lot of the argument of like, oh, is the best college team beat the worst NFL team? Because will essentially be a college team next year. And overall, I think this is the only strategy they can do. I think they have to go in the trenches. Offensive linemen can play a long time in this league, and I think if they go anything else, it's going to start messing up kind of the rebuild timeline. But if they're able to, if one of these guys is great, you already have one piece on the line, and then by the time you get a quarterback, you might have 2 or 3 guys. Maybe you have some money freed up. I think they're only paying Deshaun Watson for another 2 years. So maybe you make it out of that and you're able to pay some guys. But overall, look, got elite defense, but offense is nowhere to be found. They don't have a head coach, and they're kind of in salary cap hell. So overall, they're going to be getting a 1.9 out of 5. I really don't see a lot of success next year. They went 5-12 this season. So, a little bit better than I thought they would. Actually, I had their prediction right around this, but this defense needs to stay elite, and they need to continue doing it. And so I think they should just hire Jim Schwartz and find some coordinators out there that would be serviceable and kind of prove that they can play and that they can bring some glory to Cleveland at some point. But like I said, 1.9 out of 5, ranking pretty low. But if they smash the draft like they did last year, it might be a quicker turnaround than some people think. But that's going to be it. And thank you for watching. Check back next week when we do the Tennessee Titans.